Yo, what's up, everybody? That's right. The Boxing Source here, checking in June 26, 2023. Boxing Source podcast here, man. Yeah, I know it's been a little bit since we've kind of like been on live around this time, usually on Sundays. But past couple Sundays, I've been very busy, doing a few other things. So wanted to just get right back in it here, as we got a lot to talk about here in the boxing game. I know that we have a number of fights that are coming up. I mean, here we are at the end of June, going into July. And July, of course, is packed with a lot of fights, a lot of big fights. Big shout out to those that'll be joining in here live. Shout out to first newcomer in here, Joseph Brown in the building. What's going on? Salute to you for being here live with the Boxing Source. And we got of course some fights coming up on Saturday, and then the following week we got a good number of big fights coming up. Then July 15th, you got some things going on. July 22nd, I have something, and of course, what's going to happen July 29th, and we're definitely going to go into that here in a bit because it's been the major topic of sorts, of course, in the sport of boxing. This is the fight that a lot of fight fans have been waiting for. There with Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford for the undisputed welterweight championship. We had like a couple of press conferences that took place about a couple weeks ago. Now it's starting to lead in. You're going to have those all access episodes that are coming up that'll be on Showtime. So it'll get people all worked up for this bout. This one, if people have been around the social media waves, how it is in boxing groups on Facebook or whatever it is, how boxing Twitter is and stuff like that. This is basically the fight that a lot of people have been split over as to who would come out as the victor. You know what I'm saying? So definitely gonna break this down a little bit here. Of course, we had some recent things that come up, as they had the conversation, but with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, while they were on their press tour. And so they basically gave ratings for each other. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna break it down, man. We're gonna break it down. First, we're gonna go with Terence Crawford's rating for Errol Spence, and then Errol Spence's rating for Terence Crawford. On these things, right? So let's do this here, man. So first off, of course, they had footwork. They wanted to see if it could gauge the footwork of each of these fighters, right? And Terence Crawford, pretty much gave Spence a 6 on footwork. I feel like that's around the range it should be at. For Spence, I don't think he really does that much as far as like moving in and out of the pocket, utilizing the ring a lot. As far as like moving very much so, but that's not part of his forte. So kind of like get where that would be a 6. And with Errol Spence, he rated Terence Crawford a 7, for footwork. And for me, I think that's about the range, maybe a little bit more. But that kind of like is a factor, big factor that is that Terence Crawford switches stances, from orthodox to southpaw a lot, and that kind of like creates a lot of disadvantages for his opponents. And he's able to position himself, usually on the outside with the lead foot of his opponents, that would be able to get him more mobility to move side to side. So I probably like have Terence Crawford probably rated a little bit better in footwork than Errol Spence. I mean, both of them, kind of like up there around that 7 or 8 range to me. But that's that's kind of like one thing that I think may be a factor in this bout coming up. But uh, once things get going, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We're gonna see how that goes. Now, next up, they had on there was defense. Man, ooh, man, I think this one here is what it's kind of like. Maybe it's a little bit underrated of sorts, but Crawford gave Errol Spence a 6, and Spence gave Crawford a 3.5. Pretty much had around like a 3-4, but he feels like Terence Crawford gets hit pretty much in his fights. And that the thing about it is that what Terence Crawford he feels like Terence Crawford does is just bite down on his mouthpiece and gets in the nitty gritty and just is tougher than his opponent at times. So that kind of like is a big factor in this bout coming up July 29th is the ability to either take a punch or roll with a punch or be able to block punches or dodge. And I think the thing with Errol Spence is Errol Spence's defense is morely like a hands up in the pocket type of thing where he could slip a lot, or he could gauge the range from his opponent to where he could just be at a distance that's too far from his opponent throwing a punch or landing a punch. But as far as like slipping and moving around, or pretty much like moving around the ring, like I said with the footwork with Errol Spence, he really doesn't like move around the ring like that. With his footwork, but his defense is a little bit underrated. With Terence Crawford, like I said, I mean, you've had a couple of moments where he does get caught with some big shots, but also for me, I feel like the jab on him is something that kind of like has a little bit of success against him. If you have a very good jab, I think Kell Brook, has a good jab, very good jab. He was very successful with that. He tried to stay consistent with that as much as he possibly could until he got caught with a good power shot from Terence Crawford. Once that happened, and that was pretty much like out the window, right? Now for power, um, you got Errol Spence. Uh, he's at a 7. Terence Crawford gives him a 7. And on the flip side, Errol Spence gives Terence Crawford a 6. Now we know about Terence Crawford. Of course, he's knocked out or stopped every one of his opponents in the welterweight division since he moved up to the welterweight division. But I guess Errol Spence says that those opponents that he took on, either were a little bit smaller or had some type of factor in it. You know what I'm saying? So that's probably why Errol Spence says that like he gives Terence Crawford a 6 because it's more like a like a thing. Hey, shout out to Shot Times Finance and YSM Sports Media. Yeah, we're gonna get into their resume right in a little bit. We're gonna get into that because me and you talked about it, YSM. So we're gonna get into that for sure, for sure. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, on the power aspect, with Errol Spence too, it's more of like a dotting type of thing that he just wears on you and wears on you and wears on you. So while he has that pretty much like a piston like jab, but a lot of his punches is like to weigh you down. It's not really much of like a one hitter quitter type of thing. You really don't have that much around the welterweight division, especially at the top level. So here in this instance, it's more of like, okay, this is where he just wears down his opponent and just overwhelms him in that sense. So you do have that speed. You got Terence Crawford, saying that Spence is average on speed, 5.0, 5.0. And Spence says, around 6'7", so pretty much got around a 6.5. And looking at both of these guys, I'd say it's around that range. For it. For Crawford's around like 6.5. I mean, it's not like he has of course, not like no blazing speed or nothing like that. But it's pretty good when he throws his punches, throws his combinations. So around a 6.5 is around that good range. And for Errol Spence around a 5, maybe you could say that. But the thing about him is that he's more of like a power guy, instead of a speed guy. And when he throws his combinations, it's more of like, thudding combinations, and that's kind of like what they work on over there in Texas, man, over in Oak Cliff, Dallas area, with Coach Derek James. So, hey, I mean, come on, as far as like the speed goes, Errol Spence really doesn't worry about speed like that. He really doesn't. It's more about making sure that he lands on the target, make sure he hits the target, that he gets what he needs out of every punch that he throws. And I think that, he's one of the more accurate and consistent fighters out there, when it comes to, throwing punches, being very efficient and making sure that he lands as many as he possibly can on his opponent. Now, punch resistance, the ability to take a punch. Crawford gave Spence a 7 on that, and Spence gave Crawford a 4. I think that kind of like goes into a couple things here. Yeah, y'all going into that. Y'all going in that resume, Joe. I'm telling you. Yeah, that was funny comment, man. But yeah, punch resistance. I mean, Spence has taken a number of good shots from some high level opponents, from Danny Garcia, from Sean Porter, from Yordenis Ugas, among others. And he's been able to get through those. So that's kind of like a good thing there in reference to that. While Spence really didn't give Crawford that much for punch resistance. Now, before I get into the last three here of these ratings, I'm going to add in my guy here, of course, big contributor to the Boxing Source here, the Boxing Academics in the building. What's happening?
What's going on, Jay? How are you doing today?
All good, man. All good. Just breaking down this whole thing with the rating between Spence and Crawford, and just going to that a little bit as far as like what I think about their attributes and what I see from both of those fighters. Because I think there, of course, there's going to be some strengths and weaknesses in both fighters. It's just that just having these two kind of like rating each other in these different categories is kind of interesting. Given their history, given their background, what they've done. Particularly with, of course, Errol Spence in the welterweight division, and Terence Crawford in those different divisions: 130, 135, 140, 147. So um, so yeah, I pretty much like went through most of them so far, like footwork, defense, power, speed, and punch resistance. Just going into this thing here with conditioning, Crawford, gives Spence a high rating for conditioning. He gives him a 9, and Errol Spence gives Terence Crawford a 7.5. Kind of like, which I feel is pretty interesting. Because I think that Crawford, trains like crazy. And I know that Errol Spence mentioned that Crawford's out there in Colorado Springs. We got Colorado Springs. You got his thing there, BNB over in Omaha, Nebraska. But I think that Terence Crawford is one of the more well conditioned fighters out there in the sport. So kind of like having him at a 7.5. Yeah, that's a little bit solid, I'm sure there. Now going into ring IQ, as far as like smarts in the ring, Crawford gave Spence a 9 on that, and Spence said 8 for Terence Crawford, which I felt like that's pretty interesting as well, given what kind of like Terence Crawford has done in a couple of his recent fights. But maybe it goes into one of the other things I said in reference to Terence Crawford is that sometimes he does get caught in close quarters, with his opponents. And then once he gets caught with a good shot, it's almost like, okay, he just flips and he just, goes all out, balls to the wall, like I said, bite down on his mouthpiece and just, swing and say, hey, I'm tougher than you. Instead of, just act, like making proper adjustments to not even get to that situation, but actually show how skilled he is. So maybe that is a big factor in there, man. Shout out to Bayless and Judah Ben Israel in the building here on the live. You know what I'm saying? And of course, last thing here we got is resume. Crawford gave Spence's resume 7, and Spence gave Crawford a 0.5. And when they put that out there, folks was laughing, man, because Errol Spence does not really give Terence Crawford much credit for his resume. Of course, here, on this channel, we kind of went over the resume of Terence Crawford on multiple occasions. The Boxer Academic, has brought this up a couple of times himself. So it's more of like, okay, who do they have on this on their or resume or whatnot, where you kind of like say, hey, these guys were like among one of the better fighters, like in the division, or maybe pound for pound or anything like that. And I guess Errol Spence says, hey, I mean, a lot of these guys really ain't really messed it up, or you face guys that I've already beaten years earlier, like with Kell Brook, with Sean Porter. Errol Spence beat him years earlier. That's a major factor in that. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that was Errol Spence's major critique of Terence Crawford's resume there. So so there you had it, man. A 0.5, a 0.5. I guess when you got guys like Julius and Dongo, you know what I'm saying? That's on your resume or whatnot. And of course, Terence Crawford had his previous fight against David Vangeon. Maybe they say something about Jeff Horn, or maybe a Henry Lundy or something like that. So maybe that kind of like factors into what Errol Spence says in reference to that. It says like Tip says that he's a Thurman Shadow running from the smoke. I'm like, he's a Thurman Shadow running from the smoke. If I'm like, come on, man. I know, have pretty much a fan of Keith Thurman, but I mean, the thing was, Errol Spence was going after Keith Thurman when Errol Spence had the IBF belt and Keith Thurman had the WBC and the WBA. They wanted to go ahead and make a unification. Yet that whole thing never happened. So I mean that ship is basically sailed. So since they didn't make that fight back then years ago, that fight ain't gonna happen, man. so there's that. But Boxer Academic, man, I went through the whole thing with the ratings from both of these fighters, man. Anything that stands out to you, so to speak, on it?
Let me ask you a question. What did they do these ratings at? Was it on like a TV format, or was it like for the
Yeah,
pre fight?
it was pretty much like a TV format. Like they sat down and they would just ask on this. It was kind of like one of those
They were
questions.
in front of each other.
You know what I'm saying?
Were they in front of each other, or were they
No,
in separate? Oh, okay,
separate.
gotcha. Was it an ESPN or what network put this on?
The PBC joint. So
Oh, PBC.
time and all that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, obviously the ratings weren't genuine, in some respect. But I think part of it is kind of interesting or funny that Spence is sort of like trolling a bit, and so I guess it does bring a bit more attention toward the fight. That this is another way to make people excited in a sense. But it would be interesting to know what they actually truly thought of each other, because this wasn't it. This is maybe Terence Crawford actually was telling the truth. Who knows? Because all of his numbers were at least in the ballpark. And if Spence actually gave him a number that was realistic for the competition, maybe that would be his thoughts on it. But obviously, it's so subjective on what people rate. So it's
Mhm.
not much you can gain. The only thing that I guess you can gain from it is relative to all the other ones. So, what were the highest two from Terence Crawford's list?
Oh, for that Spence rated form.
What was the highest that Terence Crawford rated for Spence?
Oh, it was conditioning and ring IQ.
Okay, so let's say we take away the absolute numbers because obviously they're not. It's so subjective. But something you can sort of take away is he does think that he has good endurance and he knows his way around the ring. Vice versa, what was Spence's highest two for Terence Crawford?
Say it was around the same two categories.
Endurance and IQ.
IQ. Yep.
Okay, so we're back at square one then. And I mean, for both of these guys, they are exceptional A-level fighters, and I mean that is what sort of separates them in these fights. You could call it ring IQ, and then obviously the endurance and sort of stepping on the gas and going to another level is what really separates them. At least for Terence Crawford, that's what separates him in his fights. But Spence, it's a constant pressure endurance that's what separates him in his fight. So I think take away the absolute numbers of those ratings and look at what's relatively high compared to the rest of them, and that is probably a good assessment.
Yeah, I would say that too, man. I mean, the thing with Spence was like outside of the whole thing with the resume part, he gave like low ratings to Crawford for defense and punch resistance. So it's almost like he really doesn't, give Crawford that much credit in reference to the whole, defensive category, the ability to take a punch. But I mean, even with that, it's like you. I mean, he's still what 37-0, so he had to get through something in order to get to the point. I mean, you had a couple of instances where he had came back from like I said with the whole thing with Kabalioskis or something with the the whole thing with Yuriorkis Gamboa, or like I said earlier with Kell Brook, where Kell Brook was very successful with the jab early in that fight before they had the whole thing with him, just taking one of the big shots from Terence Crawford and just he just ended up crumbling. Uh, for me, I mean, outside of that, you probably would have had more closer to a similar rating for both of those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they're elite. They're both the elite, and the winner of this will definitely decide who is the number one guy in boxing, and then the number two guy will definitely be Tyson Fury behind these guys. And depending on how the fight go, number three would probably be either the loser of this fight.
Hmm. So you're not gonna put up the winner of Stephen Fulton and Naoya Inoue among that top three?
Man, I ain't watched too many anyway fights, man. I'm I'm everybody tells me that this isn't true for Inoue. Maybe I'll go and watch his fights, and I maybe my opinion may be swayed because he's exceptionally well. But this is the same hype that we saw with Nonito Donaire. This is the same hype that we saw with the Nicaraguan. What's the Nicaraguan name?
Where against Inoue?
The small Nicaraguan. Yeah, I think Inoue knocked him out too.
Oh, I think it was Rodriguez or something like that.
Yeah, but the same hype when all these guys were number one pound for pound in whoever's list, and they were the next best thing since sliced bread. But I'm gonna watch the fight obviously with Fulton because I've seen a few fights of Fulton, and I know sort of the caliber of what Fulton brings. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if Inoue does beat him, then that'll speak to who and what Inoue is. Okay, let me say this: I did watch the Nonito Donaire one. Well, Nonito Donaire was hitting him with some
Right.
good
Yeah.
stuff,
Yep.
and so that didn't leave a strong taste in my mouth for Inoue. But obviously, Inoue came back and corrected everything that he needed to correct and silenced him how he needed to silence him. What you think about? What you think about?
No, the no, what you how you kind of worded that a little bit. That yeah, that ain't work. But yeah, as far as that first fight, Inoue had to deal with a bad what he had like he injured his eye in that particular fight, and was able to get through that in order to get a decision win. But then the second fight, he just blew right past no need of Daenerys in that one, man. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I just I've never been on these hype trains. And I'm not saying that he is a hype train because I haven't watched him, so I can't speak on it. What I can say that this could be no different than all these other fighters that they have elevated to a spot that they haven't earned. Now, people will say that he has earned it, but I don't watch a lot of those small fights. I watch a few of them, but I haven't watched enough anyway to give an accurate assessment of where he lies in relation to other fighters. So I look forward to seeing him fighting Fulton and seeing actually what he is because I mean there are some things that Fulton has wrong, but what I do know is I'll see what Inoue is really made of with him fighting Fulton.
yeah. Because I mean, he be going up against a very skilled guy that's bigger, naturally bigger than him, in this particular instance, and it's not like something where, he's going up like 3 or 4 pounds or anything like that, like 3 pounds up, like 108, 112, 115, or one 118. Now it's like 122, where you have somebody like Stephen Fulton that may be, cutting down from like 130, 132 in order to make 122, for this fight. So, once he makes weight, the day before the fight and then rehydrates, he'll probably be around like 132 to 135, maybe, going up against, Nayo anyway. So it's going to be somewhere, it's not just the skill that Inoue will have to deal with, this size too. So, I'm interested to see what happens there on July 25th. It's just, 4 days before Spence Crawford. So, that's definitely a huge fight on the horizon there for that.
Is
But
Inoue that much faster than Stephen Fulton?
I don't know. I'm not sure on that. I'm not so sure on that.
So again, I don't know because I haven't watched him, so I can't speak definitively on this. But a very good bigger man against a very good smaller man, we know who tends to win
Yeah.
those fights.
Yep. Hmm.
You know who I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for the black guy. I'm rooting for the brother. So
Right. Yep.
let's go, Stephen Fulton. Show our dominance to the world.
Yeah, right. So definitely looking forward to that. And yeah, back to the thing there with Spence Crawford in those ratings. I mean, yo, actually, both of them kind of like, I feel like it's almost like they underrate each other in a sense. Like you said, I mean, these are two of the top fighters in the welterweight division, but yet, they gave each other like an average rating or better overall. So it's like, you have these guys that have been, like I said, unbeaten. You'll have all the major titles in the welterweight division. Are among the top five pound for pound in many people's lists, in the top five on the boxing source pound for pound list. So I think they would be a little bit above, 7 or something. They got to be like an 8.5 or a 9 at the very least, But I guess they'll see something that probably we don't see in some of these fighters. I mean, I know that like you mentioned earlier, maybe Errol Spence kind of like trolled a little bit with a couple of these things with the ratings that they had. But like I said, maybe they see something that we just don't see. And we'll end up finding out on July 29th if one of these fighters can take advantage of what they feel like is a weakness on their opponent. Okay. Um, just real quick, big shout out to all those listening on the live chat here with the Boxing Source, supporting the Boxing Source here on YouTube, supporting the movement. We got a few things in the works here for the Boxing Source. Got a couple of interviews that we're going to be posting up. But here we got one that's going to be coming up live. That'll be on Instagram on the Boxing Source Instagram page. We're going to have scheduled for tomorrow Elijah Pierce on the Boxing Source Instagram page live. So you have the Instagram, you can check us out live. It should be around this time tomorrow. We'll have Elijah Pierce on here as he has something real big coming up. He's coming up real quick in the ranks in his division. So he has this key bout coming up that he's getting ready for, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit on tomorrow on Instagram Live. Now, going on this next topic here real quick, man. You got the real big baby, as he says, Jared Anderson, undefeated, big contender there in the heavyweight division, and he was preparing for his hometown bout that's coming up on Saturday, July 1st. And, was, originally there, supposed to be in there against, what is it, John Kazabuski or whatever it is. Yeah, John Kazabuski in a 10-round bout. But, now it's going to be against a former IBF heavyweight champion. I work this earth like a god, Charles Martin. You know what I'm saying? But real quick, man, big ups to Slide Tendencies in the building, contributing to the Boxing Source, man. Shout out to you, Slide Tendencies. We appreciate the support here on the Boxing Source, man. And y'all could go ahead and contribute if you can. If you support the Boxing Source, we appreciate all those that would support the Boxing Source. Jared Anderson going up against Charles Martin. Of course, Charles Martin is had a fairly extensive layoff of sorts after the Luis Ortiz loss, but he did get back into it in September against Devin Vargas. He was able to score a fourth round knockout, over Devin Vargas. But some people may have thought that maybe Charles Martin has been like off of his game or whatnot. But he's somebody that's been in the gym. I've seen him out training over in Las Vegas. Some months back. What was it like? Ever since what I would say like February. So he's been like just waiting on what would be the next shot for him, after he had his latest win. But a lot of people kind of like point out too, when he fought Luis Ortiz, he looked like he had a very good success against Luis Ortiz. He knocked him down on 2 occasions in that fight, but then he just got caught with a big what's a big left hand and whatnot, and it just had him seeing stars or whatnot. He was absolutely stunned. But that's kind of like how it goes in heavyweight boxing. But now he's back at it, back in the game here. Over in Toledo against Jared Anderson, and with Jared Anderson, he's kind of like been the guy that's a lot of people feel like is next up. That would be next up to be one of the more serious heavyweight contenders out there. So, here with this one, he goes ahead and he faces a former world champion. Now, Sly says that he finally ready for deep end. I guess ready to take on a number of these contenders. Like I said, Charles Martin is a former world champion, but on the flip side, Kazabuski, who they had originally scheduled for him, he was also like ranked in the WBC. So you have a lot of these guys that are around that range, around 9 or 10 in the rankings for these boxing organizations that Jared Anderson could go ahead and try and fight. Uh, while the whole thing at the top gets itself sorted out whenever it gets sorted out. You know what I'm saying? So now Jared Anderson, I think, if he goes ahead and he gets a stoppage win here against Charles Martin, we'll see if they could, get him right back in the ring. I don't know if they're gonna still work on getting Kasabuski or whatever his thing is with his work visa. If they get that sorted out, and maybe he could still have a fight with Anderson. But as of right now, got Jared Anderson against Charles Martin, said former world champion. And it'll be, a pretty good name on Jared Anderson's resume if he's able to get the win here coming up on Saturday. Boxing Academic, man. I know that kind of like seen Charles Martin in the past. What do you think his status is at this point? Going up against Jared Anderson here coming up on Saturday.
If there is any time, Charles Martin, talking to you, buddy. If there is any time for you to show and prove, the time is now. The time is now for you to walk this earth like a god. You're going to have to hit this guy early and often. Early and often. Because you're a decorated champion. You lost your belt to Anthony Joshua. No shame in that. You got beat by Luis Ortiz. No shame in that. And, the other people that you got beat by. But we see that your punch resistance is compromised, for lack of better words.
Mm-hmm.
And this ain't the guy that you want to let get confident. Jared Anderson, in his last fight or 2 fights ago, he fought a guy in the tall black guy. He was a little older too, but for like 2-3 rounds or 1 round, excuse me, he was letting him have it.
Yeah,
hitting him with all type of punches, hurt him, and then round 2 came out, if I'm not mistaken, and then he blew his wide. He blew his wide in round 1.
Yeah.
Charles Martin, I want to believe you that you could walk the earth like a god and be like baby Hercules or something. But man, you got to come out and try to knock this dude out, man. And get him out of there early. Don't let this fight linger on, because it's a line from Currency. Shout out to Currency. He said, speed kills, and them young cats is mad quick. You don't want to go into a race about speed and, agility with this young cat. Do all you can to get this man out of there early. And if you can't get him out early, go out on your shield trying to get him out early. Because there are not many other scenarios outside of you catching him late. And it's going to be what Anthony Joshua says, a shot from the gods. It's going to have to be a shot from the gods I don't see you winning this fight unless you clip him early and get him out of there. Come out, middle of the ring, and clock him with as many shots as you can. Because otherwise, man, it's not going to end well.
It's not gonna look good for him. Yeah, won't look good for him. Yeah, with Jared Anderson, he had his fight against Jerry Forrest, out there in MSG in December, and Jerry Forrest had tried to, like as you said, like blow his wad in that first round to try to blitz Jared Anderson, and he caught Jared Anderson a couple of times, but after that happened, and Jared Anderson got his bearings back and everything like that, he just overpowered and overwhelmed Jerry Forrest to just force a stoppage there in that particular bout. And then afterwards, I mean, you had Jared Anderson right back in it in April against George Arias, and George Arias was around pretty much like a little bit around the same height, probably about a little bit shorter maybe, but he's still like a short, stocky type of guy, where it's like, how they have that whole WBC Bridgeweight division that they try to create. Like George Arias would be a guy that would fit into that Bridgeweight division, because he is just not, he's not big enough to face like a guy like a Jared Anderson or, any of those bigger heavyweights that are like 6'5" and above. Like he can't really do that. And so he wasn't really engaging at all against Jared Anderson in just those 3 rounds or so. So it was all about Jared just trying to catch up with him. But like you said with Charles Martin, if Charles Martin says, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna step up to this guy. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna show like I could be the bigger dude. I have the height, I have the reach, or whatever it is. I have power behind my punches. 29 wins, 26 knockouts, and 29 wins. So he does still pack a punch. So if he could just do that, rounds, like I said, in round 1 and round 2, and then see how Jared Anderson takes that, then maybe he does have a shot. But yeah, any time after that, if he just uses up most of his energy of those first couple of rounds and doesn't really face Jared Anderson, man, yeah, it might be a wrap for him.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let's say he come out early. He hit Jared Anderson early and often, hard as he can. Does he have the skills to box off the back foot and keep Jared Anderson off him and walk Jared Anderson into big shots?
I don't know.
Let me say one more thing. Because Jared Anderson, as far as I remember, follows behind people with his hands down. He walked behind people with this false bravado confidence, and his hands are not up. And then he throw his hooks and throw his uppercuts and everything else from the hip, which he fast enough to do that. But I'm just saying, can Charles Martin move, pivot, stop, walk him into a shot, sort of like a la Roy Jones or something? I'm done.
I don't think so. I think with Charles Martin, he's more of a guy that's like either a come forward style, or he's very good stationary. Just staying in one spot. Throwing punches, throwing combinations. But as far as like on his back foot, I don't think he really has that type of instinct to try to counter off of that. He's more of like someone that if he backs up, he'll just have his guard up like this or pretty much have his hands up, and you'll just try to take the offense from his opponent. I don't think he has something where he can say, oh, maybe I see this opening. If I bait, Jared Anderson in, then maybe I could catch him with a counter hook or something like that. I don't really see that. Is more of like he catches a lot of his opponents, while being on the front foot, coming forward, or just just stationary while his opponent is stationary too. So yeah, I don't see Charles Martin having that instance where he would be fighting off his back foot, or trying to lure in Jared Anderson while backing into a corner and then try to counter.
Well, I'm saying similar to what he did to Luis Ortiz, which was he tried to box off his back foot. It wasn't. I mean, it worked for a little bit, but obviously Luis Ortiz landed big shots. But I'm saying, can he? I'm not even saying stop and engage in the corner. I'm saying
Mm.
to be Eris Landy Laura at heavyweight and throw shots while always moving. To be the guy Terence Crawford beat. To be him, Yuriorkis Gamboa. Give or take. But what I'm saying, fight off the back foot and
Right off
don't.
the back foot, like throw jabs while backing up, touch jabs or anything like that. Try to keep the distance away from Jared Anderson while Jared Anderson's coming forward. I mean, I see that could be that could possibly happen.
Well, I'm saying when he does come forward, I'm saying low him with jabs, and then
Hmm.
when he comes forward with his hands down or attempts to attack, that's when you throw a shot. But you quasi off balance in a sense, like you're sort of what's the word? You are timing him in a sense, like you're moving your feet and you're timing him to where you stop your movement in order to hit him.
Where Yeah, I mean, I have to see, and also I have to like figure out how Jared Anderson deals with this particular stance too. Because of course, Charles Martin is there with the lead hand as his right hand, so he's going to be throwing on the right jab on Jared Anderson. Like, how's Jared Anderson gonna be able to deal with that there, and especially with someone that's taller with a reach of what 80 in comparison to 78.5 for Jared Anderson. So that's going to be one interesting part of this particular fight when it comes up here on Saturday.
Do you think that Charles Martin is his style is educated enough to utilize that 2-inch reach and capitalize? Because if I'm not mistaken,
Mm,
he had a reach on Luis Ortiz too, right?
yeah, yeah, he did. And for me, I thought over those first couple of rounds or whatnot, I thought he was doing very well. Was pretty, yeah. Luis Ortiz is around the same height and reach as Jared Anderson, so it was more of like Charles Martin utilizing the jab, using that reach and everything like that to try to get success against Luis Ortiz. And then a couple of times he was just able to catch Luis Ortiz with some big shots that threw off the equilibrium of Ortiz there, and had him down for a couple of those times with it. But outside of that, like, it was just his ability to take a shot that was his downfall there against Luis Ortiz. But you got to see if he still has that type of mentality to just stick with the jab, just be patient, see if we have any openings for the left hand if they come out there, or if he's like you said, if he goes out all out in those first couple of rounds and uses most of his energy in those first couple of rounds, that's going to be key. Sam.
I just don't want it to be Anthony Joshua Part 2.
Where he just gets caught with like one shot that doesn't really seem like it was a very big shot, but he still goes down like that.
Yeah, but I think Jared Anderson is going to be worse than that. It's going to be Jared Anderson is just going to be hitting him with shots. Now, Jared Anderson has not been tested, but the dude is exceptional in his ability to throw punches from a stationary position.
Mm-hmm.
Like he definitely has to practice throwing both hands and from both stances, because even being square footed, because every time I've ever seen him throw shots, he always get leverage on both sides. Like he'll get leverage and then throw the overhand from both sides, and they both come with a lot of power. And like it'll be from the clinch in a sense. You know how when you clinch people, and a lot
Yeah.
of people just sort of like Devin Haney just sit there and just like, oh, you back away, back away. But then how Lomachenko was like F that and was hitting him coming out of the clinch.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how Jared Anderson does. But obviously when he hit people, it's unforgiving. It ain't gonna be too many more chances after that when he hit you coming from the clinch.
Yeah, that's true. Especially
So I'm
the
saying before Charles Martin get to where he just be taking a bunch of shots, you either A, go out there and catch him, and maybe you mix it up. You go out there the first round or the first few seconds, 30 seconds of the round, you go out there and hit him with a bunch of big shots, and then you move around. And then you like move, 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 everybody booing, move, move, move. And then you stop, bow, 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 hit him, and you keep moving. And I'm just saying guerrilla warfare. Because what way does he seriously win this fight outside of knocking this dude out?
yeah, I don't see much at all. Especially, like I said, it's their home of Jared Anderson too. So Charles Bryant got a lot going against him here in this instance.
Why do you think he agreed to this fight?
Probably because it was the only shot that he had, for I guess a while for him to get in the ring against somebody. Like outside of the fight that he had in September, um, they really didn't have something out there for him. I'm not sure. I'm not completely certain that he is kind of like around the thing there with Top Rank. I'm just saying that I saw him, working out around the Top Rank gym, months back. So, maybe they had him, I guess, waiting for a shot against one of these guys there that was in the heavyweight division. I didn't think it would be like him being a replacement opponent for Jared Anderson, where he doesn't have like quote unquote a full camp. He's been in the gym, but it's not like he's kind of like worked out, as far as like doing specific sparring and that type of thing to an extent to where he would be fully prepared against someone like a Jared Anderson. But maybe I guess they just had him fit in as one of these guys. It almost seems like they wanted to just put him on the shelf or leave him on the shelf for an occasion like this against someone like a Jared Anderson, or they have someone else that's gonna be on the card, Arslanbek Makmadov. Like these are two of the guys that Top Rank has at the heavyweight division that are around that 5 to 10 in the rankings for these organizations, and so it's like, okay, who do we have that we could put in there to have these guys look good? I guess maybe that's what it was. It was that they had Charles Martin out there, just waiting to see if he's put in a position like this, because they do have a number of guys there in the in the heavyweight division. It's just like where they're going to position these guys in order to have these guys fight against each other, because they wouldn't have what it was. I knew that Jared Anderson and Johnny Rice weren't going to fight because all of those guys are pretty much around the same. They work with each other, they work out with each other, and all that type of stuff. So it was like, nah, you really couldn't see that. So I guess they just put him in there, as one of those guys that he would kind of fit in as a fighter to face someone like a Jared Anderson, or maybe a Efe Jogba or who else they got out there like Sonny Conto too. But Sonny, I don't think Sonny's not around that level yet. So yeah, I don't think you would put Charles Martin against like Sonny Conto, but someone like
F.A. Jogba would have been a much better fight for Charles Martin.
well against who?
For Charles Martin, F.A. Jogba would have been a much better fight.
I
A
definitely think
winnable fight, actually.
yes. Yeah, I think it would have been a much better fight, winnable fight, or that type of thing. So, but yeah, they didn't necessarily want to go ahead with that. They just had him here, against Jared Anderson, and like Sly said, I think they're saying like, hey, it's around that time for Jared Anderson to kind of like really climb up in the ranks and soon be that guy that's up there among the top, as far as like a contender is concerned. But like I said, they have another guy there at heavyweight that's around that same around that same range too. 16-0, 15 knockouts. Arslanbek Makhmudov. So he's going to be on that ESPN card as well. So you're going to see these two heavyweights basically being featured on there. And those that are going to be watching, they're going to see, okay, which one of these two guys is going to be kind of ready for that next step. For me, I think maybe Top Rank should consider if Anderson and Makhmudov win their fights, maybe just have them go up against each other. And that would be like their guy to be the next in line for what happens there in the heavyweight division. So we'll see how that goes. Just moving on here. Thanks for those sticking in here. Slide Tennessee, Shot Town's finest juice in the building. We'll salute to y'all here on the live chat. Just going on this last topic here real quick. Just getting back into it. Canelo Alvarez, Santos, Alvarez Barragan. Yes, of course, he did sign with Premier Boxing Champions. He does have this deal coming up. We did talk about it to some extent last week, that it would pretty much like end up being like a 3-fight deal. First fight looking like it's going to be Jamal Charlo, of course, WBC middleweight champion. There he's going to be going up to super middleweight to face Canelo Alvarez. So that is going to be one of the fights coming up for Canelo Alvarez, and that's going to be a very big bout. And like I said, last week, Jamal Charlo may not have, had a fight in over 2 years. That doesn't mean that he hasn't been in the gym. He's definitely been in the gym. He's been there with Coach Ronnie Shields over in Houston. And, once they had got word about, what's going down with Canelo Alvarez, they were like, oh, snap. All right. Hey, we in it. We all the way in it now. And it's, a fight that Jamal Charlo has been looking for years against Canelo Alvarez. So we got to see how that's going there with that. Real quick on the thing with Tip saying, of course, July 8th, you have the WBA welterweight title, Iman Stanionis versus Virgil Ortiz in San Antonio. I don't think I'll be able to pull that off, man. Going to San Antonio, man. Those flight prices, man, in San Antonio, man, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. But that is definitely a great fight that's going to happen between those two guys. I know that they've, had a couple of attempts to try to have that fight take place, but now it's going to actually happen here on July 8th. But I mean, you have that, but also you got the thing there with Jerome Boots Ennis against Roman Villa too. So so that fight, I should have seen about like going out to that. So yeah, I don't know if the Boots Ennis joint, I really want to go out to see that joint. So that's the one that I'm kind of like looking for, is the Boots Ennis, him headlining over in Atlantic City. So there's that. But back to the whole thing there with Canelo Alvarez. It's like, of course, reports circulating that it would be Jamal Charlo was going to be his opponent. We kind of like looking at, maybe it's going to be Las Vegas, maybe it'll end up being in Houston, Texas. That could be huge if it's in Houston, Texas. They're looking at having it at the baseball stadium there in Houston, Texas, Minute Bay Park, in September, of course, September 16th. So
Ain't
that
gonna be no open scoring, is it?
oh, Texas, yeah, man. I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. That they had, what was it, that a fight
Austin
against
Trout.
Austin Trout. Yep. And they said like about like round 8 or something like that. Like they had Canelo up by like 4 rounds or something. I'm like, come on, man. Like what what are we doing? So
Eight
I'm like,
rounds and Canelo was up by 10 rounds.
yeah, I'm like, yo, I don't understand where they got that from, but like I said, I mean, they're definitely going to be ready on that. Over the next couple weeks, probably see if we could have that confirmed. Canelo versus Jamal Charlo, and if that's the case, I'll see if I can work on at least getting, at the very least, Coach Ronnie Shields to speak with us here on the Boxing Source. And if there's any type of shot, then we'll see if we can also get Jamal Charlo to speak with us on the Boxing Source to reference that fight if that fight does end up taking place. But there's definitely big news there in reference to Canelo Alvarez getting there with Premier Boxing Champions, and that from a fan's perspective, I think some are like a little bit disturbed, so to speak. I don't know why. You want to go ahead and have the biggest fights possible wherever they are, and the thing about it is with Canelo Alvarez, you like there really wasn't that many other options out there. What are you going to do? Face Dimitri Bivol again? No. I mean, people aren't interested in that. You had the whole thing with Edgar Berlanga. Of course, he had his fight on Saturday against Jason Quigley, and we see that he couldn't even get through. Well, he got through 12 rounds with Jason Quigley, but couldn't finish Jason Quigley. And some people were thinking like, oh my goodness, Canelo is actually going to face Edgar Berlanga. Nah. Mm-mm. And the zone just pretty much said, "Hey, the buck stops here. You can't be having these type of fights and demanding this type of money if we're not getting good returns on these fights." So they're like saying, "Hey, man, if you could go somewhere else, I mean, cool. I mean, we cool with it." And that's basically what happened. And so now with Canelo Alvarez now with PBC, you're gonna see these big events coming up. You're on Showtime pay-per-view, and the first one looks like it's gonna be Jamal Charlo, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. Um, yeah, that whole thing tip for that boots fight in Atlantic City. Yeah, I want to see if I could make that trip over there, but but I'll see how that's gonna work out if I'm going to end up doing that there too, but. Yeah, back on the thing there with Canelo Alvarez, looks like 3-fight deal. Charlo looks like he's in that deal. David Benavidez might, looks like he's in the bookend of the deal at fight 3. And then we'll see what happens in fight 2. I don't see it being somebody like Demetrius Andrade or David Morrell. It won't be one of those two guys. It's gonna be somebody else in that to kind of like fill that second slot, or may end up being a rematch with Jamal Charlo. So that just remains to be seen. But the thing is, bottom line is Canelo. They're on Showtime. That's going to bring a lot of fans watching to Showtime pay-per-view. So definitely looking forward to that. With that being said, I mean that kind of like covers everything I wanted to do here in this particular episode. Boxing Academic, wanted anything to add?
Yeah, it looks like Showtime is winning the best network award.
Yeah, yeah, this
Atlanta.
has really been great.
Yeah.
We're just we're just getting about to the close of 6 months. So that we've already had very good fights here 6 months in, and then we got the second half of the year, all that stuff coming up too. So it definitely really putting their best foot forward here this year for these fights. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Yep. So, with that being said, that brings a close to this particular episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. Thank everyone for joining in live. Thank all those that were listening here in the replay. And of course, big shout out to the Boxing Academic for being part of this show. Also, being part of the movement for what has it been, man? It's been almost going to 9 years almost. You know what I'm saying? So, we'll get right back at it. Like I said, we got the interview coming up tomorrow on Instagram Live. And then we're going to see if we can do a midweek report, see if we can get more consistent with that. And then we'll get right back into it with the next episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show on Sunday, coming up on July 2nd. So we're going to see if we get that rolling for y'all. But until then, folks, like I say at the end of every show, point of boxing is a hit, not a hit, not a center trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.